Hey there, folks. Welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture. And here's a big one. We're going to be talking about the newest album from Post Malone called Beerbongs and Bentleys. So I've made it no secret that I've got some issues with Post Malone. Hell, most of you probably already know that. You've seen my 4th anniversary review of Stoney, where I panned the record for being flaccid, sloppily produced, excruciatingly performed, awfully written, and generally a complete chore to get through. Or you've seen how he's wound up on multiple year-end lists of mine for the worst hit songs of 2016 and 2017. And that's before we get to his comments surrounding hip-hop as an art form that came later, and how if you're looking for emotional, evocative music, don't listen to hip-hop, which reveals far more about the mercenary attitude beneath the good-natured, doofy demeanor that makes all the posturing look utterly transparent to me. And you know what? I don't know how he could have walked away from it. For Post Malone to be within the culture and not aware of artists who can deliver a poignant, powerful message, he'd have to be impressively ignorant, utterly callous, or a complete moron. Possibly all three. But you know what? The unfortunate truth is that I knew he was going to be allowed, he was going to be enabled to stick in here and walk away from all those comments, because his massive audience of white kids just looking for something to vibe to, they don't give a shit about hip-hop culture that inspires the art form, and they're not going to stop listening to this album with him on Spotify, which is why the album is currently breaking streaming records and going to cause a big album bomb on Billboard Breakdown. But I do care about hip-hop culture and the history. Yeah, I know I'm not really a part of that culture, but I can sure as hell respect it and the art that comes out of it, and when I look for my long-standing qualifiers for artistic cultural exchange, know and respect the foundation points in the history, work with those in the community to elevate them, and then deliver something of quality. Post Malone, at most he gets 1 out of 3. And thus, while I knew for this channel's viability, I kinda have to cover this. Yeah, Candy Paint's on it, but so is Rockstar, a song I genuinely despise, and the damn record's over an hour long, so yeah, I wasn't really looking forward to this. I can't say I was. But hey, Post Malone has made songs that are tolerable, or maybe even great in the past, so this might not be bad, right? Alright, here's the truth of it. I don't think it can be denied that Beerbongs and Bentleys is a better record than Stoney is. The production is markedly better, Post Malone is marginally more competent on the microphone, there's a little more forward momentum overall, and just the existence of Candy Paint elevates this project. It is a legitimately great song. But also by its existence, it illuminates the vast expanse of droning, empty trap warbles that you have to endure to get to it. And the second you dig even a little bit deeper, it's very easy to uncover a much more unlikable album than you would expect coming from somebody like Post Malone if all you know is his persona. And yes, I'm gonna call this out because even if you're not supposed to think about this in the music, you just know this record, if it had meteor content, the fans would be trumpeting it to the high heavens. So yeah, he's not getting out easy here because this is pretty bad. And might as well start off with Post Malone himself, and let me get my own personal issues with this out of the way. Even by the standards of oversold, auto-tune crooning, Post Malone just still gets on my nerves. I don't deny that, like with an artist like T-Pain or early Kesha, Post Malone, he's using the auto-tune to accentuate whatever personality he has, but he's doing it to accentuate his ugly warbling that sounds like a cross between vibrato, yodeling, and getting tased in the nuts. It sounds absolutely grating to me whenever it shows up on this album, which is a lot, and with every added layer of auto-tune, it only seems to accentuate how limited he is as a singer to hold any damn notes. And that's a real problem when you consider the persona that Post Malone is trying to project here. Because not only does he want to be seen as rich and successful, but also as a sensitive and introspective artist type. And added layers of those forced artificiality, it adds a pretty significant crack in that veneer he's putting forward. Of course, the much bigger crack comes in the content. And here's where I'm going to say something that's actually kind of surprising. I don't really care if Post Malone is gonna flex or revel in pure shallow debauchery. There is a place for that sort of music, and one of the reasons why Candy Paint is a genuinely great song is that it captures that glossy, quietly exultant feel of being on top. It sounds content in a really chill, appealing sort of way. One of the big reasons why Congratulations worked off of Stoney. But then you see the rest of this album in contrast and you realize two things. Number one, on most of his party songs, Post Malone doesn't sound like he's having any fun, and number two, his his attempts to place himself above some of this debauchery feel either hypocritical as hell or just flat out bullshit. In the first case, it's more of an issue with the production, but the flagrantly unconvincing flexing is just as much of a factor, with Rockstar being the biggest example of this, as he tries and fails to equate himself with the rock icons because of his debauchery, but he's such an unthreatening and unconvincing presence that makes an already miserable song that much worse, especially when you realize that he and 21 Savage don't compare themselves to other rappers, because that would expose how damn shallow they are within the larger respective genre. And Paranoid, it's not much better, and it falls into a similar category. Not only does the production fail to cultivate any sort of menace or tension whatsoever, the paranoia feels about as unsupported in the text as Drake's did on Views. And of course, then you get the lines about not picking any sides after a reference to politics, which exposes that A, you've long had enough privilege and money not to care, and B, you're just a shallow fence sitter anyway. Surprise. But then we get the kiss-off songs at women that he thinks are shallow, like on Spoil My Night, even as he mentions her beautiful boobies. Or how on Same Bitches with G-Eazy and YG, he always sees the same Instagram models at the club who he thinks are trying to leech off of him. Dude, if they have 1 million followers on Instagram, they're probably doing just fine without you and not getting off their daddy issues. And when you factor in how angry he tries to get on Over Now, or the sluts grabbing on his nuts, his words not mine, on Rich and Sab, it's very hard for me to take him seriously or feel sympathy for him at all, when he then has the drunken mess of taking shots where he says he speaks drunkenese, or the empty flexing of Psycho with Ty Dolla $ign talking about his chain being stanky, or Blame It All on Me, where he tries to half-heartedly step away from the debauchery and he fails. Again, it's not the flexing that bothers me so much as the hypocrisy and the pretension that he's above it all. And that's not even getting to his post-breakup bitching like on Rich and Sad and Better Now and Other Side, which bring a pettiness that really clashes with his oversold delivery in an ugly way. And that's not getting to songs like Zack and Codeine, where he's complaining about people who are copying him, which if it wasn't for Future and Young Thug, Post Malone would not have a career in hip-hop. And you know what? I can't even say the production really helps him here. Yes, it is marginally better in that there isn't so much ugly tonal clash between the trap percussion and melodic backdrop, most of which consist of watery guitars and keys that are suffocated in reverb midway to the back of the mix. But even slightly improved mixing doesn't help the fact that so many of these songs embrace a downbeat, melancholic vibe that doesn't so much feel introspective or thoughtful, but really turgid and slow, with a lot of these songs starting to run together and just not being all that interesting with the melody de-emphasized. It's one reason that even though the overblown drums and overnoun sound utterly ridiculous, seriously, they sound like something a SoundCloud rapper would try and not a good one, but they at least add some character along with those sharper minor key strums in the guitar. And then we get the damp keys that might be a little bit atonal, like on Spoil My Night and Ball For Me, the latter really only saved by the Nicki Minaj not trying on her verse, or even that shimmering tone that clashes with the odd beeping on Sugar Ray, which tries for a weird interpolation of Sugar Ray's Fly, and the song's really only interesting for the Anthony Fantano reference. Good props on you, man. I should mention this more because they feel distinct in some of those tones rather than outright good, which is unfortunately much the same case for the acoustic cut Stay. Where to Post Malone's credit, he at least seems to try to ride the muted bass and electric guitar solo decently to characterize falling into debauchery to avoid dealing with his real relationship issues. There's something of a conflict there. Even opposite lines in the pre-chorus where he talks about putting this girl out of her misery, which is a much darker connotation than I think even he knows about. There's even the case with songs like Blame It On Me, which actually has a darker trap groove, but is not sold all that well by him, or Jonestown Interlude, which could be subversive with the brighter tones chosen for the guitars, until you realize it's just framed as an excuse for Post Malone to keep on flexing. So there's no real arc on this record whatsoever, and any sense of deeper pathos is very quickly forgotten when he's just gonna drink the Kool-Aid anyway. I never thought that he wasn't, and that's really where I fall on most of this album. If it was content to just wallow in empty flexing and its brighter production, you know, it'd be one-dimensional, but I would probably like it more. Instead, Post Malone spends a much bigger chunk of this album complaining or miserable in his success, and he's got nowhere close to the dramatic presence as a performer or the writing to really pull it off. It's painfully shallow, but it's been enabled by privilege and an uncaring audience to be convinced of its depth, when in reality it's the sort of flimsy slog that will burn out the second the trend dies from overexposure, which is the one reason I'm really not that angry, except for the waste of my time. And for me, yeah, 4 out of 10, not really recommended, but again, Candy Paint's at least a pretty damn good song, and the rest, yeah, again, it's only a matter of time before Post Malone falls out, probably for the same overexposure album bomb that has hurt plenty of trap acts this year. Really? Just a matter of time, so just enjoy it while you have it. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. If you'd like to like and subscribe, I'd be more than grateful. I know this review is probably going to piss you off, but hey, from what I've said about Post Malone in the past, does this surprise anybody? Let's be real here. Beyond that, if you want to buy the record, links down there below. Got the poll up there for y'all to tell me how wrong I am. Anything else I might be able to do to improve my presentation, I'm all ears. And if you guys want to get involved in my scheduling process to support this channel so I don't have to cover stuff like this as often, link to my Patreon is right over there, where 3 times a week you guys get to vote on my schedule, and once a week for the higher tier contributors, you guys get to add albums, movies, or even the top 10 list to that schedule. More details right there. If you want to see a schedule, it's on my Instagram down there below. Keep in mind I've changed my Patreon structure from per month to, or from per video to per month, so you can get more bang for your buck. More links over there. Until next time, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.